Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cheeky Natives. Today's interview is really exciting for me personally, and I know for sure that Alma is also excited for the person that we'll be having on our podcast today. Now, I have to tell you the background. About I think 2 years ago, I discovered this amazing, wonderful poet, and I just started listening to her work. But there was this one particular poem that really stayed with me. The poem is called This Poem is About Joy. And I had never felt anything like the feelings that I felt when I read that poem and when I listened to it, and just the manner in which it was performed. So I'm really excited to introduce our next our guest today on this episode. Ebony Stewart. She's an American writer, creator, and an absolutely amazing poet, and also does a bit of work in the health space, and has really changed, for me personally, the face of how we consume poetry and what we talk about in poetry. There's just these threads of Black women that have been creating a lot of poetry these days that are really relevant to our lives. So I want to say hi, welcome Ebony. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you.
How are you doing today?
You know what? I'm actually feeling really, really good. Yeah.
That's good. I think, firstly, I want to say thank you for just this opportunity, for allowing us the space to have an interview with you as the Cheeky Natives. As we've spoken in communications previously, the Cheeky Natives are a collective, two people who are bibliophiles and really like celebrating Black people, and in particular Black women in the art. And we thought it would be important to have you on this episode. So really thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I think
appreciate it.
The first question that I'm really interested in, and for people who are listening to the podcast and have not really come across your work, who is Ebony Stewart?
Oh man, it's easier to know who you are internally than to explain who you are externally. So I guess I could come up with some quickness. Yeah, I am a daughter, a sister, an artist, a lover of many things, and a creative, passionate person. I'm definitely a person that wears my heart on my sleeve, so that everyone can see it, and definitely the person that when I walk into a room, I demand a certain kind of way to be handled, or for people to be around me. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
It really does. I like the fact that you say I'm a person who wears their heart on their sleeve. I think in most instances, I'm also that person. You will know how I feel about you, and I will continuously let you know how I appreciate you. Because I think we don't celebrate people enough. And particularly as Black people, I don't know if you might feel the same way, but particularly as Black people, we have been deprived of love in so many ways that I think it's important for us to continuously celebrate and show each other love, because it's important for us to remember that we too are worthy of being loved.
Yes, I agree 100%. 100%.
I guess the next question that I want to know is, when did you start writing poetry?
Oh man, I started writing poetry when I was 8, and it was some really dense work. It wasn't great. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't too good, but I used to write a lot about the stars and the moon, because I liked outer space and I liked being left alone. And so the outer space was pretty appealing to me. My mother still has this work somewhere. I need to find out where, in case she uses it against me or something, But yeah, I started writing when I was 8.
And I guess for me, the question is always, when people start writing, that they are reading and that they have some favorite writers or people that they draw inspiration from. So my question is, who are some of your favorite writers, or who are some of the people that you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, I am enamored with, and always have been enamored with, Sade. She wrote for Color Girls. I loved Lucille Clifton, Maya Angelou, Juliet Diaz, Augustine Burroughs. As far as like local poets that are here in the States, I'm a huge fan of Ariana Brown, and I might just be biased just because she's my family. I'm also a huge bias to Lois Guile. But those are just to name some. I'm in love with a lot of different work.
Yeah. And do you read? How often do you read? Do you read like? Do you have like a book every month, a book every week? Like, are you one of those people who's just like in books, out of books, like reading 7-8 books at a time?
I when I have off season for myself, when I'm not touring as much, it's easier for me to juggle multiple books. Am on tour, I generally only have like one book that I'm really reading and giving my attention to, and the other is just to my craft. So, I don't have a favorite book of any sorts, but I have so many books that I really enjoy. Right now, I'm currently reading Dry by Augustine Burroughs. And let's see, other books that really strike me and that I feel I can always go to. One is Lillian, that's by Shenge as well. Let's see, How to Lose Her by Juliet Diaz. You know, it's so hard because I also go to, I'm a book hoarder.
Preach.
And you know, there's these people that will sell their books back, and I'm just like, I can't sell my books. I can't get rid of them. I need these things. I don't know what I need them for, but I have a very extensive library. So,
I mean, I have this vision that my house, as you enter, will have this whole like corridor of just books. Books, so that people can be like, you know, you're a well-read person, and I'm like, yes, that's what I am.
Yeah, you know, I have when people walk into my house, the first thing they see is my bookshelf. And so it's really important to me to read, because I feel like I can afford that to why I am the writer that I am. I don't think that you can be a good writer without reading. And so, yeah, I have tons of books, and each one of them strike me for different reasons. And I also will frequently go to a bookstore from whatever city I visit. I try to find a bookstore there and get a book. So I haven't even read all of the books that I have, but I like to have an extensive backup in case I need something, you know?
I know that feeling too. I mean, you are a world Women of the World poetry champion for slam poetry. Do you want to tell us a bit about like your thoughts around slam poetry and why it's important for you to do slam poetry?
Yeah. Well, you know, like I used to slam all the time, meaning every time there was a slam, I was there, right? And up and slowed up just because I was starting to get a little bit more. I was using slam as a way to validate my work, and I don't think that was healthy for me, because I needed to find the worth in my work without someone else giving me points behind it. So I slowed up. I don't slam as much, right? And so how the math of that goes is, last year when I became Woman of the World champion, like I had only slammed, I want to say, I think that was my only time slamming last year, honestly. And so I try to make it count when I do slam.
You're coming for everyone.
You know, but I do enjoy slam. I love the competitiveness of it. I love that you have an audience of people who might not necessarily know what they're getting themselves into, but the topics are so vast and strong and vulnerable. This is just what I feel slam should be. And how do you tell a story about something that isn't new, but make it feel or seem new? And so that's how I go into my work. Especially performing. Anytime someone sees me on YouTube or wherever performing live, like I have worked that work, you know what I mean? And I have really flexed it, like I want it to be its best representation of me. And I always want my work to have longevity, and I feel that slam, because of the platform that it gives poets who don't mind competing with their work, because of its platform, I do think that it's necessary and strong,
I like the fact that you're talking about the idea of, you wanted to use slam as a form of validating your work, and you saw how unhealthy that was. And what do you think now validates your work? Like, do you just put it out there and be like, this is me, Ebony, in my authenticity, and that's enough?
I think as an artist, we don't ever really know when we're enough. And that is part of the struggle of being an artist. So I guess once I'm satisfied with it is how it gets validated. If I can perform this work and have at least one person come up to me and tell me how it makes them feel, genuinely, then I feel that is also a validation. If my work gets recognized, by Cheeky Native or someone who I also respect, that's validation too, because it's like a kindredship that we have in poetry and the words and the emotions that a poet or myself can make you feel.
I mean, I guess we can go deeper into the work that you've been producing and the work that has been out there. One of the first poems, as I said at the beginning of this poem is about joy, but we'll talk about that a bit later. But one of the first poems we discovered from you is a poem called Eve. And I mean, Eve is quite deep, but there's a line in Eve where you say, he asked when he can touch you. This is back when men knew you as human. And for me, it's powerful because it speaks about the idea that there was a time where, although it was laced in patriarchy, where men were chivalrous, so they were more concerned about your humanity than about their entitlement. But over time, what has happened is that men have felt entitled to women as bodies. And this is part of what you say in this poem. And I want to know, like, what inspired you to write Eve in particular and in the manner that you did?
Yeah, exactly the things that you're saying, I always wonder if, how can I say, I'm always curious if the Bible is our first introduction to patriarchy and misogyny and women being second. And in often cases, the more I read of it, the more it is. And so I always like to challenge this because I want to know, one, who did we worship before the Bible? What was we worshiping? What did we believe in? And two, what would happen if one, God was identified as a woman, or if Jesus was actually, for lack of a name, Jessica, right? Would women be still treated and considered the way they would, or the way they are? And so I'm always very intrigued and curious about women empowerment and how do we make sure that we are not being stripped of our power, right? If we knew all of our power and all of our greatness, would we even allow patriarchy to shrink us the way that they have, or to be dismissive or disrespectful to us as they have? And to me, I really just wanted to write something that was in remembrance of women, right? And of our bodies. If it is that you're going to see our bodies in these ways, let us not forget that our bodies are powerful, and we are the ones that created you. You know what I'm saying? So you came after us. And so I just always, when I do that poem, I always wanted to feel strong, and I always want every single woman in the room to feel empowered and unstoppable. You know what I mean? I have this phrase that I say, unfuckwittable. I really want women to be unfuckwittable. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot fuck with us. And if you do, understand how you are shaking and dismantling your own life and journey and creation and purpose, right? I really feel that deeply about women and our strength.
That's deep. And I think you go further to say in the poem, anyone who thinks women are delicate or breakable can't remember the ways in which they were born. Right? Yeah. That's quite deep, because I think as people, we keep forgetting what women go through. Like the type of actual physical strength it takes for women to carry people, not just a person, because some women carry more than one person in their body, in their stomach, you know, in their and I think that's it. Like I like the poem Eve, because, you know, it's really upholding women and saying, like, look, if you think that we were supposed to be this, these are the many ways in which we aren't that. And I appreciate the way that you uphold women in this poem.
Thank you so much. I look at it also in a way where not just in a moment of childbirth or carrying, but also rearing, you know, women, especially Black women, are such resilient beings, and so we carry and we are pregnant with the world all the time. You know, we are in labor all the time, and so just our way of survival, to me, is also the poem Eve. How we survive, how we respond to patriarchy, how we respond to misogyny, how we respond to aggression and oppression. And I just hope that poem puts that back into perspective for any woman who has dealt with that in a way that has kind of stripped her of her power in some ways.
And I think in tandem with this, you also write a piece called Happy Mother's Day, and it's a poem about your mom. Do you mind telling us about the relationship with your mom? And you know, you say really interesting lines in the poem that I think are really funny. For instance, one of the lines you speak about this whole idea of your mom will wake you up to clean her kitchen, you know, and I want to know particularly the inspiration in the relationship with your mom, but also if you take after your mom, are there some habits that you've adopted from living with your mother?
Yeah, it's very hard for me not to be my mother's child. I am definitely her daughter. My mom is one of my best friends, and she always has been. We've always had a super tight connection, even from when I was in the womb. You know what I mean? The story goes that, like, when I was in the womb, anybody who would walk into the room that I didn't like or felt would do my mother harm, I would kick, right? And so we've always had, like, a very protective union, if you will. And I feel oftentimes that my mother has either been my mother or I have been her mother. Like, we've switched places in our lives, but we've always been together. That's how close we are. And in this particular lifetime, she gets to be the mother and I get to be the daughter, and I wouldn't have it any other way, really. But where it was super close, as my best friend, she's my one of my biggest supporters. She roots for me like nobody else. And she's also very honest. So I think maybe that's some of the stuff that I get from my mom, like the honesty, and sometimes it's a little raw. Like, she hasn't really thought about how to be gentle in what she's saying. It just kind of spills out, but she means no harm, but also she loves hard. And so I feel any strong mother who was also a single parent, they tend to love hard and they tend to love on purpose. And so, you know, I'm very much so like that. My mom she's a bit anal when it comes to kitchen and cleanliness. I'm a bit anal about where stuff is. So, like, everything should have a place in my mind. We're a lot alike in a lot of ways, but also I feel we're different, and it might just be the age difference of us. I can go to bed with dishes in my sink. It doesn't wake me, but she's not like that. So even still to this day, but our relationship is great. She's a very great mother, and I'm very fortunate to have her.
And do you think that you've come to the place where you see your mom outside of her motherhood, that you see her as a person? Share that she's Black woman first before she was your mother?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's such a great question, because in my relationship with my father, in order for me to forgive him, I had to see him as a human man, a human Black man in America, and what has America done to him for him not to be able to do for his children when we were growing up. So over time, I have just watched my mother be a woman, and a sister and a friend, and just witness all of the ways that she has been able to be. And so, I definitely allow her to make mistakes too. That's a part of being human, and just a woman. So I allow her to make mistakes, and I don't hold it over her head. And I think out of my siblings, all of us, I am the most understanding and forgiving of that. So, yeah.
And I mean, you speak about your father as well. You speak about, in order for you to forgive him, you had to see him as human first. You've also written a poem called Happy Father's Day. And, I mean, I don't want to be like, because I love all the work that you do, just because I think of the messaging behind every single poem. They stand alone, all the work. So in Happy Father's Day, you say, yes, without you, I'd be nothing to write about, so thank you for teaching me how to make nothing out of something the way you raised me. And I think like this poem resonates deeply with a lot of people who were raised without their fathers, or also who have like these complicated relationships with their fathers. It seems to be the reality of a lot of Black children growing up without knowing their fathers, or having absent fathers, or even when their fathers are there, they aren't there in their fullness. So how do you think like that has impacted you? Because the poem is a really deeply personal account of how you've weaved, magic out of nothing. So how do you think that has impacted you?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that so many people can relate to that poem in particular. When I initially wrote it, I wasn't writing it thinking that people would have such a relatable response, right? Like, I was writing it for my own healing and forgiveness, right? I do wish that my father would have been in my life as a youngster, I think that if he would have been in my life, maybe I would be different. I don't know. I don't know. Like, the reality is that he wasn't, and so that's the one that I live in. At this moment now, I love my dad, and I had to find ways to forgive him. And so we work on our relationship, and we find commonalities that we have. I know that I have some traits that are my father, to where I am my father's daughter, right? And so I try to find ways to embrace those mannerisms. And my father is an artist in his own right, because he's a drummer. And so and I feel like when I write, I have a certain rhythm to me and cadence to my writing and my performance, and I can't give that praise to anyone else but to my father, And so I try to find things like that stands out, rather than to focus on the ways that he wasn't in my life. For people who it's like their father was not there for them in that way. They know what that hurt is, and they know what that abandonment feels like, right? And what I try to do is not to carry it into other relationships, because I was starting to notice a pattern for myself to where I wouldn't let people get too close, or I would never let, men in particular feel that they're going to get anything out of me that I don't want them to have. So I was really hard, and I was holding a lot of resentment and holding them responsible for my father's mistakes. And so I had to put myself in practice of forgiveness, and I'm still there. I still oftentimes am very jealous of friends and, cousins who their father is in their life, and I see the presence and the difference that we have. And that is hurtful for me. And so, it's just a matter of jealousy, in all honesty. But then I look at it also as a way that I have had to evolve. And what did I make of the life I was given without my father a part of it? So, it's interesting to be a student and an educator of the misplacement of your father, or not being in that person's life. Because at the same time, I look at it like this, like, he wasn't in my life, but I wasn't in his life either. And so he's missed out on quite a bit. So when he is there, I try to make sure that he is still getting to know me.
And I think one of the lines that struck me a lot is like, you only show up to be seen. And for me, that wasn't even only in terms of this relationship, but in terms of relationships in general, that there are people who aren't there for us in ways that we need them to be there for us, but are always, always, always there for us when we win Women of the World Championships, when we skyrocket on YouTube, when we become these amazing poets who are world traveled, then people show up. So I thought that that was so powerful, just to speak about the nature of I think the sad truth about people, that some people only show up to be seen, and particularly in family relations, there's a lot of that, where people aren't there for you, aren't checking up on you monthly to see how you're doing, are you coping, but will be the first people to be like, oh, I know her, or I know him, no, that's my girl, she's family, so that that line for me was beautiful. It beautifully captured the sad reality in which we find ourselves.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
I was wondering if it's possible to, just if you can remember the words of this poem is about joy, to recite it, and then we can talk about it, because I think that poem is a must teach everywhere in the world. A must teach everywhere in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about how could I properly give just due to this poem, right? Because what happens is that every time I perform this poem, I get super emotional, and I'm very present in it. So if you could just give me just a quick little second, yeah?
Okay.
This poem is about joy. It's not about water remnants, evaporation, or sand, or thirst, or dry fruit, or hinges, or being hung today. No one died on the street, on the sidewalk, in the hands of a police officer or guard today. A little boy is able to play outside and be a child with a full imagination today. The only time he was asked to put his hands up was to show us how he looks when he pretends he's flying today. A black woman could smoke a cigarette, could laugh, could do whatever the fuck she wanted to do with her hair, No one called me a nigger today. Blatantly or indirectly, today they remembered my name. Today it sounded like joy, no matter who said it. Today, being black was not a reason to die by its natural causes. What I mean is, no one tried to kill me today. No one black, or dark skin, or the wrong shade died today. The only time we came inside was to gather and tell stories. Remember when every day was a funeral, a sad song, and a eulogy? Oh, but today, the time we cried, the only hashtag we used today was joy. Today, the handkerchiefs only wanted to feel the faces of the ones who cried with joy. This poem is about joy. It's not about fear or anger or sadness. Them emotions come to us too easy. This poem is not about glass or porcelain or fragile things or being weak or tired or broken or how many times or how long we got to work for it. This poem is about joy. How long it stays, how we remember it in us. Always.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You.
I felt that. And I think I feel it every time I hear this poem. For me personally, and I think it's the same for Alma, it's like a weekly reminder of just playing this poem, because I think there are a lot of things that goes into what the poem is speaking about. There is one line where you say, "No one tried to kill me today," and for me, like I read it as, you know, living in this world, particularly living in America as a black body, particularly living in the world as a black body, it could mean both literally and figuratively. Like, no one tried to kill me today because, you know, there are a number of ways of the violence in which patriarchy and racism intersecting in black women's life, but also racism for black men, like this perpetual criminal trope that is placed on black men, that when I read that line, "No one tried to kill me today," I was like, this is actually really hectic. Is that what you intended when you wrote that particular line?
Yeah, that line is, so every line in that poem is so loaded. Let me just also say, right? Because when I set to write this poem, I wanted to first initially get directly to joy. Like, how do black people experience joy? And I had to also realize that as black people, especially as black people in America, we only know how to experience joy through struggle or through pain or through oppression, and it's what we do with it that then becomes the joy. So in that line, "No one tried to kill me today," I'm also wanting to say, or hoping that it's saying that other people hear that I survived, right? That I'm still alive. Because if no one tried to kill me, then I'm still here. And so, it's the way I layered this poem sometimes for myself, I think that's why it makes me so emotional, because I was trying to hide so many things and just focus on, okay, what is the part that is actually the joy, right? And I couldn't figure out a way to just do it, to just write from a joyous place. I had to like go through the muck of it first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think like it's in the way that you set it up. I think it's carefully like written, because you're gradually moving from, you know, the boy who can fly with the full imagination, and then you go down to be like, and the only time we were asked to come inside was to sing, right? And then there's a place where you like, it's not about fear or anger or sadness. Them emotions come too easy. And for me, I think like it's a lot, because it speaks about the idea of dealing with the fear of being alive as a black body in the country, in the world. But it's also about dealing with the imposter, because white supremacy has been internalized in us all. So there are certain ways in which we have to deal with like just who we are and like how we are not enough. And also the idea that, as Black women, there is even a term, angry Black woman, like also dealing with those things about like, why should we have these things that are attached to us? So I guess for me, it also speaks about the idea of taking care of yourself. And what does self-care look like to you?
Yeah. I am always adding to my self-care list, let me say, because I figure the more I grow, I learn that there are different ways that I need to tend to my body and to my heart and to my spirit and to my mind. And how do I tend to those things separately and also together, right, as one. So, Black women are demonized so much that I also feel that a way of self-care is to allow myself to be angry when I want to be angry. And that's a form of self-care. Like, it's okay for me to be angry. That is actually a real emotion.
Yeah.
And people are allowed, everybody else is allowed to be angry. But Black women, when they're angry, I think that it is the fear that it puts into other people, because when Black women are angry, there comes action.
Yeah, it's interesting because Audre Lorde wrote a piece called Uses of Anger. And one of the lines in her essay, she says, my anger has not done anything for me, and it will not do anything for you. Or she says, no, in particular, she says, my fear of anger has not done anything for me, and it will not do anything for you. So she speaks about the whole idea that you're saying, that anger is an emotion, and anger is a good emotion. And then she says, Black women in particular, when they're angry, and which they deserve to be angry, that's when the action comes. And I think like we're afraid that, oh my gosh, these Black women are about to show up. I mean, when we look at like organizations like Black Lives Matter, hashtag say her name, it's these Black women coming through and being like, enough is enough. And also the idea that Black women have always been the architects of revolution, always been at the forefront of revolution.
Absolutely.
Yes, so you're saying what your self-care looks like. Sorry, just for that little interjection.
Sorry. Oh, yes. So like a lot of times self-care looks like for me going to get pampered. That might look like a massage, or going to get like a manicure or pedicure or something like this. I've also paid more closely attention to who is touching my body. So, and how that works into self-care. So I might not want a massage from a man. That has nothing against a man. I just might not want a man's hands to massage me and to work all of my chakras in that way. So it also looks like, just giving myself a break. I feel that I myself particularly am always having to be on, always having to be present, always having to be responsible, even if it's for somebody else's something. And so checking out and being like, no, I'm unavailable right now. And letting my no's be no, and letting my yeses actually be yeses, and making myself clear, do I really want to do this or do I not? It also looks like, I try to be very careful about who I let in my space. And so I tend not to want people around me that ask more of me than what they can give. And that's difficult sometimes because some people don't always know their purpose yet. And they don't always know that they might be asking you more than what they can actually give. And in some cases, you as in myself, might have more to give. But that doesn't mean that I should always be made to show up. I tweeted the other day, like, I hate when people ask me Googleable shit, like, you don't have to at me. You don't have to ask me. You don't have to text me. You could just Google this shit on your own. And there's like this landscape or this blueprint that people think that I have that should be given to them. And I am not in the business of that. I'm in the business of, this is what worked for me, and you got to find out what works for you. And it took a long time for me to realize that is self-care. Because if I'm working on your shit, then who working on my shit is what I be trying to figure. I really, I like to laugh. I feel that laughter does me such good, and it makes me feel good. I like to be around people that I know without a shadow of a doubt love me, and will bring me joy and remind me of, memories that I'll need later on. While I'm on tour, I can go back to this memory for this reason, where this friend or this cousin or this sibling said or did this, and those are just some quick ways that I feel that I most consistently have self-care. But there are other ways that I'm still working on it. Let me just also be honest. I'm still working on it. It's a practice. It's something that you have to put in place for yourself. And as we know, Black women are very selfless.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. I also thought that, while speaking about self-care, I'm remembering your poem about compassion fatigue, which won Women of the World Poetry last year. Whoop, whoop. And I was wondering if it's possible to also perform that piece for us, and then for us to talk about like because there's a lot to unpack in compassion fatigue.
Yeah, it is. Sure. Let's gather that. To the white woman whose YouTube comment said she is tired of every other American porn being about race or rape, I'm not sure if compassion fatigue happened because no one taught you how not to be the oppressor, or because no one taught you how not to be oppressed, but your comment reminds us that no one cares about us but us. You're right. There are no new topics, just old problems written into new pleas to a country that refuses to reckon with its own sickness. We Americans, land of the free, can only keep our motto if we keep our mouths closed. And isn't that what all rapists want? Control and a silenced victim? Do you realize that someone has stopped listening to this poem because I am first Black and also a woman? Black, if I'm alive still, woman, if I haven't disappeared yet, got anything anybody in the world might need except my voice, which means my body must be what's left for the taking. I'm not sure how we became treasures we can't afford to keep, but there are all kinds of women who have been raped, who hoped their warm body hearts would stop beating, but still got up and went to work the next day. What we know is it's hard to comfort a girl that doesn't let on she's hurting. So praise every woman that speaks out against her rapist. Praise the ones who didn't but got their healing from the poems you are tired of hearing. How easy your life must be to only be able to sit through the happy while we try and believe the only things we need to remember about suffering is that eventually it ends. 3 times now. On social media, I have personally watched a Black person be murdered because the United States is still making us pay for the way we look or the guilt it feels, but a person of color's only glory, hallelujah, is as long as we didn't die then, we didn't die. Do you realize that when our mothers say, I love you, she is also saying, stay alive, come back to me whole, in one piece, and not a hashtag or another dead nigga's death you'll have to watch on repeat. Us poets, whose duty is to write about the times right, because we don't know when we too will become extinct. Black ink from Black poets who dare to write about all this Black death instead of hiding behind everything. We're thinking how privileged your life must be, that you could be tired of hearing poems about race or rape while we the poets write about an extinguished race and violated bodies that keep being raped. It's not hard to believe you're tired. But can you imagine how exhausted we the poets must be?
Snaps. Yes, Chicken Natives, you're in for a treat, man. Again, this is Ebony Stewart, and she's just performed Compassion Fatigue. There are a lot of things to speak about in compassion fatigue, but I think one of the couple of things that I'd like to speak about would be you speak a lot about privilege in the poem, and I think it's a privilege that can dissect in two ways, right? One, you're speaking about the privilege of white women who are subjugated by virtue of their gender, and are in the struggle together because sexism affects all women, but it plays itself out differently. So you speak about that, and then in the same way I read it also, this poem has been a poem that is directed to black men who exist in this marginalized body by virtue of their race, but are also privileged. So I want to ask you, what would you want to tell me as a black man and white woman? I know you speak about it in the poem, speaking about like, I can see how tired you are, but in essence about like how I can be a better advocate, how I can be a better, I don't like the term ally, but for lack of a better word, how I can be a better ally to you as a black woman, to black women in general. Like, what would you as Ebony Stewart say you expect from me as a black man and from a white woman in who purports to be an ally?
I think, the first thing that comes to mind when you say this is that, or when you ask this in this way, is I want to say, like, cherish black women. Listen to us. Understand what we have afforded for you to have the privilege that you have, meaning that we had to give up some things. And in us giving up some of those things, or all of the things, we also consistently show up for y'all, right? And it comes with even without dismay, like it's just a part of our DNA that we show up and we get shit done. I believe that was Malcolm X that said the most disrespected person in America is the black woman, right? The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And so all of those things are true. That's not make-believe. And however long ago he said that, it is still true today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saying that you love black women is not enough. Saying that you are an ally is not enough, right? There has to be action. There has to be a clearer way that we feel and know and can see that we are valued, right? And I don't really always know that it's left up to us to tell those particular groups of people what those ways are, right?
Yes, because I think in some ways it's also the idea that you continue to do the work as black women. So not only are you saying I'm hurting, but you're also saying I will help you deal with how you can stop hurting me. So there's this added burden that is placed on black women, whereas you can say, look, I've already told you your problem. You need to figure out why it is your problem and figure out how to deal with your own problem. Because I'm hurting, I still can't be that. And I think I really like what Audre Lorde says. Audre Lorde says that I am not free until every woman is free, no matter her shackles. And I'm not free until any person of color remains chained, and neither are you. So I think for me, in talking about white women and in talking about black men and in talking about black women and in talking about all marginalized groups, which include queer people, is the idea that we have to have a sort of relationship with each other that is mutually beneficial, because our liberation is truly linked. Like, I can't be free unless you are free, unless someone who's more marginalized than you are free. And I think this is sometimes where we don't get the conversation. We don't get to the conversation to be like, I'm not saying stop putting your butt against my neck as a black woman. What I'm actually saying is that you are doing the same thing that has been done onto you.
Right.
So, yeah. And then I mean, we know that social media has been, and I guess this is part of the inspiration of your poem, like social media has just been really problematic about how people have responded to women who've come out to speak about rape and sexual assault. Just how some people are like, oh, we don't have enough evidence. How can we believe this? And that has been deeply problematic for me, because I can't imagine what it must take for a black woman who has been violated, for anyone who's been violated, to come and speak up, especially after years of silence. So the fact that we are still ostracizing these women is not creating a space for society to deal with rape and sexual assault. We're promoting rape culture. And I want to know, because I know you do a lot of work in the health sector. How have you merged the work that you do and in the inspiration of this particular poem? Like, has it been coming from personal experiences that you've had?
Yeah. A lot of times when we, when society thinks of rape or assault, or even just like feminism, yes? Black women are left out of that because there's something about our bodies that supposedly is deserving or can withstand, right? Or black women aren't just shouting at the rooftops or crying, or even though mental illness is real for us, I'll carry on. You know what I mean? Carry it on now. It's very strong, and the strength of us, nobody's checking for us. So I really, I've been assaulted, and I've been put in a place that was uncomfortable for me, and not felt like I can get the support that I need. And I also have been in places where I felt guilty about asking another black woman to support me when I know that she is dealing with the same. And I'm like, well, we're there for each other. We care about us, but no one else does. And so we're left to tend to each other, and sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that's hard, because when do we just get to be taken care of in that way? So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. What is your question to me? I want to make sure that I'm being
No, you have answered.
careful.
You have answered the question. I think that, and even more deeply so, like you speaking about something that I have thought about, but now you've articulated in a way that like just hit home, because you speak about this idea that you as black women are being violated every day, but you still expect to be there for each other. It's sort of like this idea that you can't fill from an empty cup, but there's no one else filling this cup, so you have to be there for each other. And I want to know, do you think that in some instances the communion of black women, even just speaking about the experiences of being violated in the world, has been healing?
I think that it can be. I think for a lot of women at different times of our lives it is, right? But I also think that sometimes revisiting our trauma just picks the scab and we bleed again. And then we're left to also mend that scab again, But I am trying to get to a place where I can teach women, especially black women, how do we not even create the scar, right? How do we not even get ripped open? Whenever I'm on stage and I go to these colleges and universities and I speak to, it's predominantly women in my audience. And I wish that was different. I wish that I wasn't talking to us about us. You understand? But in that case, I'm okay with that, right? Because I want it to be that, a hashtag of Me Too is not enough. I want it to be that women know how to protect themselves and know how to be prepared, and that we speak up not only just after we've been violated, but we speak up even before someone ever thinks that they can violate us. You see the difference? It's like when I started this conversation, when I walk into a room, there is a certain way that I want to be treated. And I'm almost actually demanding when I walk into the room. I'm not nasty or nothing, but there's a certain mannerism about me that I want to make sure that is articulated without me having to say anything. So the physical of me is, I'm unfuckable, so don't try me. And if you do, I'm going to make an example out of you, right? I don't ever want it to seem that I am weak, even if I am. I don't ever want it to seem that somebody can take me or steal me from myself. And so I'm hoping that women can speak up and not just speak up when after something happens, but speak up in a way that's like, you're making me uncomfortable. You know, I don't like how you're treating me right now. I demand more, or I'm leaving, and when you want to communicate with me in an effective and respectful way, I'm here for that, right? But I feel that we as women, we give so many chances for people to mess up and mess over us. And I'm just not here for that. So when I'm on stage or when I do poetry that's very centered, I'm talking at a something, you know, like I really want it to be that when they leave from this space, something I said stuck with them, and for more than anything, it's that I am worthy and I get to have a say on how people treat me, and how people interact with me, period. You know? And anywhere else in the world, if it was a man, he's considered a boss for being that way, you know? But as women, it's like this. It's like she's a bitch, or she's this, she's that, or what's wrong with her, or calm down, or, you know? And I don't want that. I don't want us to cower from our strength and our power, because it makes someone else uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
I want us to create the narrative and the conversation or the whisper that when this woman walks in the room, oh, yo, like, listen, like, everybody get their shit together, you know what I mean? I want that. And I feel that if more women knew that about themselves or carried themselves in that way, it would help.
Yeah.
Now, yes, men are still very much responsible for how they treat women or how they violate us. And so that's why I do wish that men were in the room and it was more of a part of a curriculum, if you will, right? Like an education on how to treat women or how to hear or listen to women.
And how not to rape. You know, how not to rape. How not to rape women. Like, if you are alone, please stop the urge from raping someone. Just stop the urge, you know. Because I think, like, listening to you now, like, in some ways really break my heart about the state of the nation. But because I'm really hearing deeply what you're saying about the idea that there is a lot that you're doing as an educator. There is a lot that you're doing as a poet. There's a lot that you're doing as a black woman for other black women. But even that is not enough and does not guarantee that you as a black woman can be safe, right? So the idea is that the responsibility also really lies on black men and men as a whole to be having these conversations, to be entering these conversations and to be there, and not for women to be talking about women like speaking to the converted. That there is a responsibility on us as men to do better, you know, to be taught to do better. Because I think, yes, in all honesty, we've all been hurt, but like black women get the brunt of most of our hurt, and that's unfair because black women have been subjugated more than we have. And yes, when we start playing this oppression Olympics, we're all the same, but honestly we're not, because your intersection is black, women, and sometimes queer. Like, these multiple locations that you find yourself as a woman make you more vulnerable than they make me.
Absolutely.
So and how, because I mean, compassion fatigue is a really like I want to say an emotional poem, but also may have required a lot from you, just as a creator, because it touched on a lot of things, and as you said, it speaks about your own violation in some instances. Have you found that you found some little bit of healing, even if it's not a lot, but some healing in writing the poem and standing up? Because in some ways it could also be like a rant, like, just like, listen to me, you never listen to black women, but listen to me, this is what's happening.
Yeah, and I think I know that I addressed that, you know, like, somebody has stopped listening to this poem already just because I opened my mouth, you know, because I'm black and I'm a woman, so it's like I'm not worthy to be heard. But I have found healing in this poem. In different times when I perform it, I feel like super strong. And then other times when I walk into a room, the energy is so shook that I'm like, I'm fearful of doing this poem because I don't know if I'm gonna be protected afterwards, you know. If I could just tell you just a little bit, it took me so long to write this poem that I honestly thought it wasn't gonna happen. I was just like, I need to give up on this poem because I cannot write and effectively say what I'm trying to say. And so the very first time that I ever put it up in a way that usually I know if my poems are finished or not before I present them. This one, I was like, I don't know if it's done. Like, I feel, and I had to recognize that I was just scared. I was scared of the poem, and I was scared to say the things that I was saying because I didn't know I didn't feel like dealing with not being heard. I didn't feel like dealing with white women saying that they feel attacked, you know, or men being like, that's not true, or, you know, I just didn't want to deal with that. And so it made me fearful of speaking the truth that in the way that I see it. And so, but yes, every time I do this poem, I definitely try to make sure that as in any poem that I do, I want to make sure that I'm present, and I'm choosing the right audiences to do it for, on different stages.
I guess for me, the question that then comes is, what does your feminism look like to you?
You know, I always say that I'm feminish, okay?
Feminish, okay. Yes.
And I think that that's more so just because I believe that women are human beings and we deserve rights and equality, and that is what feminism is. I also am not blind or forgetful of the fact that feminism did not always include me. So, and that oftentimes when it comes to feminism and allies, as in white women, it is them standing in front of us saying that they are allies, and letting, you know, their feelings and thoughts and stories overshadow ours. And so that's hard for me to be a part of that group. You know, a person puts a uterus or draws a vagina on a poster, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to feel like they're really fighting for me, you know. Like, that's interesting oftentimes. So I always consider myself to be a womanist.
Yes.
And I am a Black woman first, and so I'm Black and I am a woman, and those two things are not separate, but they are also not the same. And I recognize that when I walk into a room, that they have already made the difference of how they want to see me or what they saw or understood first. And so I can't really say that I'm a full out whatever, you know. I need a spreadsheet, child, of what the requirements are of a feminist anyway, because they change. You know?
But I think it's important.
I do a whole bunch of stuff that I feel like is not a part of the guidelines. But me as a woman and me getting to choose how I speak and how I address my sisters, and how I, you know, present myself, for me first is about womanism and not of being a womanist, not a, you know, a feminist so much.
Yeah. No, that's really important, you know, to keep saying that you're Black and woman. Those things are not the same, but they also inform how you are read and how you enter rooms.
Right.
Wow. This has been a really glorious conversation.
I know. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I'm overjoyed, y'all.
I want to know what is next for Ebony Stewart?
What is next? So I am, come this spring, meaning March, I'm putting out my third body of work, which will be called Home.Girl.Hood. And it will actually have Compassion Fatigue, Eve, and so many others, you know, Happy Father's Day, in just actual manuscripts, which so many people come to me and they ask me, where can I find this work other than YouTube? And I tell them, oh, it's not in anything. But that has come to an end, and it's going to be in this manuscript, and I'm so proud of that.
Oh, we're
I'm
so
also
excited. We're so excited. As
yeah,
literary
thank
fanatics,
you.
we will have a full copy that belongs to you. Yes, yes, we're so
Yes,
excited.
yeah. I'm so excited about this body of work. Every single poem in it, I would perform on any stage on any day, and I think that's unique to say. I don't know a lot of poets that will perform every single work in their book. So yeah.
Oh, that's very exciting. We are definitely going to call you up for signed copies of your work. We are so excited for that. um,
I
I
will most definitely do that for y'all. Thank you so much.
No, thank you really much for just putting yourself out there, and thank you also for writing the work and doing the work that you do in the manner that you're doing it, in the manner that feels most authentic to you. Because I think sometimes there is, like as you said, these guidelines, and we want to continue with these guidelines, but that takes away from our authenticity and from who we are. So for us as the Cheeky Natives, your work has been important because it's an authentic, it stands by itself, and how we rate people's work, how we rate people's books, is we give them pieces of land, because we believe when reparation comes and when the land comes, we will be giving away title deeds, because we're just like, give them land, give them land.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm trying to think of a nice piece of land that we can give you, and I'm in the West Coast right now, so I think that you deserve a nice situation there by Malibu Beach, so you can enjoy the warmth, just the warmth of the West Coast, and enjoy the beauty of the West Coast.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I received that. I received that. Y'all so good to me, man. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Cheeky Natives and Cheeky Native listeners, this is what's going to happen. Ebony Stewart says she's releasing her body of work in March, this spring. We will certainly let you know when the body of work is out and how to get a hold of the body of work. Right now, Ebony, if people want to follow your work, do you have a website? Do you have social media? How can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm not hard to find. They can go to EB Poetry, like ebpoetry.com. If you are on Instagram, you can do Gully Princess. That's Gully Princess. Ain't no Z's, ain't no underscores. It's just regular. And then if they are on Twitter, they can do EB Poetry on Twitter as well. So
okay, as you've heard, people, you can catch her, EB Poetry, on Twitter. Gully Princess on Instagram, and she's also got her own website, ebpoetry.com, so you can get her work, and you can also watch her on YouTube. I will share some of her work after this interview. I'll share some of the work on our pages, just so you can get acclimated to the brilliance of Ebony Stewart. And again, thank you so much, Ebony Stewart, for joining us on this episode of the Cheeky Natives. We from the Cheeky Natives really appreciate the work that we do, and we celebrate you.
I celebrate y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Cheeky Natives. Bye.